actually came up with. Like it's, I mean, biohacking is hacking your biology. That's kind of a mashup term, right? Like trying to elicit more performance, right? Getting into your individual biology, hacking it, figuring it out. How do we get more out of it? That's biohacking. But there's another mashup term that's being used in politics that's called hacktivism. And that's when you're hacking for the social good, hacking for activism. So think of like Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, Anonymous, some of these groups, wherever you fall on them politically, idealistically, they're trying to do things that help the world through hacking.
Yes.
And so I love the idea of biohacktivism, where typically biohacking is about like the N of one, meaning like self experimentation to push your own limits. It's all about you. How do I get more for me? How do I take more from this world? Whereas the idea of biohacktivism is about giving more to the world, is about when you're heads up, when you're optimized, you can recognize things going on around you. You can have more empathy. You can have deeper connection and relationships when you're optimized and living at your fullest.
Yep.
So that's the idea that I'm throwing out there, biohacktivism.
Obviously, your journey started, you had different autoimmune issues and, one being fibromyalgia and Epstein-Barr. Now, was that sort of like a trigger for you to go down that path? And when did you have it? And what was that time like for you?
So, yeah, that's a great question. And something that happened to me while I was pursuing my master's degree in nutritional biochemistry from UNC Chapel Hill. I was, on my way to becoming a registered dietitian, biochemist, and all of these things. And I got very sick with Epstein-Barr virus, which is also known as mono. And then from that, I got chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. And then later on, I ended up getting a pituitary adenoma and Hashimoto's, which Hashimoto's is a thyroid autoimmune issue. And the pituitary adenoma is a brain tumor. And all of this led me to deepen my search to fix myself.
Yep.
And I think the world has benefited from that. I mean, and I think anyone who's really good at what they do is probably doing it because there's something that they're just so passionate about. And that's for me, like trying to literally survive. And when I was at Chapel Hill, I was in bed, inflamed, in pain, hurting, depressed, suicidal, thinking my life was over. I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. I wouldn't be able to go back to class. I wouldn't be able to finish up my master's. I wouldn't be able to be a dietitian. I wouldn't be anything, let alone the world's greatest anything formulator or whatever. Like I was going to be the world's worst something. Like I was going to be a complete failure laying in bed. And that was incredibly depressing. And that's what led me to dig into keto as a lifestyle. I read all these books, and that's when it started. It was about 20 years ago. And I found out that keto alleviated a lot of my inflammation and pain. And so that was a breakthrough for me. It wasn't like just, it's a way to lose weight and all this stuff. Like for me, it helped with my autoimmunity dramatically. And then later on, as I got that pituitary tumor, I really buckled down. And that's when I added in paleo and intermittent fasting and biohacking and, doing IVs and working on my blood work and working with an allergist and just digging into everything I could. And that's where I'm at right now.
And how old were you when you started on that journey? And how old are you now?
I'm 45 now.
45. And so that was over 20 years ago you started on the journey? Yeah, exactly.
And so I was a little ahead of the curve on the keto thing.
Yeah, I mean,
but
exactly, yeah. I mean, if you look at it and if you look at keto, it's, like the number one searched words when it comes to health and nutrition. And you were onto it 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I dug into a lot of biohacking and pushing the limits with supplements and IVs and intermittent fasting and paleo 8 years ago when I got my tumor. So, I mean, I've always been researching what's next, what's ahead of the curve, and I can tell you what's ahead of the curve right now. That you're going to say, Sean, you were talking about that 5-10 years ago when it gets big, and we can get into that into this.
I'd love to get into
podcast
that.
sure. But that's where I'm at. I want to be out front, and then I want to be conveying that message in a clear and simple way so that people can use it. Right now, there's a lot of people out on the forefront, some that are very close friends, that are doing all of these things, that are doing 60 things a day that are very complex with enemas and putting poop inside themselves with fecal microbiota transplants and doing like all kinds of IVs and exposing themselves to all kinds of chemicals and peptides and all the things. And it seems very complex and overwhelming to most people. And what I want to do is break that down, make it simple, and tell you how to do it and tell you what are the things that really move the needle for you. And some of those things are actually extremely simple and free. So we can talk about that too.
Well, let's do that. Let's talk about what's the simple takeaways that we can do right now that it's going to help move the needle. And you're right, it is so complex. There's so much information out there that people don't know who to listen to and what to do. And obviously Game Changers being one of them. But I want to start by what's the simple takeaways that we can take away. And then we just mentioned before, moving forward, what are we looking at? Where is it moving towards?
Right. So the simple takeaways right now, the simplest things. I mean, this is going to sound like you got to be kidding, but this is the truth. The truth is this simple. The quality of your relationships determine the longevity of your life.
Love it.
And this has been shown in the longest, most robust study out there, a Harvard study that's now 80 years, that spanned generations. They've looked at everything, blood work, genetics, socioeconomics, demographics, whatever. They've looked at everything. And it's quality of relationships. So who are you putting around you? Are you consciously adding people around you that are building you up, that are mentoring you, that are guiding you, that are challenging you in the right way? And that's critical. And you'll see, like in these blue zones where people live past 100, like Sardinia, Italy, you'll see that they have 3-hour dinners, where they're sitting there. Yes, like people get caught up in, oh, it's the red wine and it's the fish and it's the Mediterranean food and, it's all these different things. And sure, that plays a role. But the biggest thing is that they're slowing down, they're eating together, and they're fellowshipping. They're having true therapy. While we're barreling down the road at 80 miles an hour, like eating a Big Mac and, have the radio turned up and we're weaving in and out of traffic. Like they're taking 3 hours of their day to like sit with each other and connect. And that's powerful.
So environment plays a massive role.
One of the next ones is they've shown that people that are happy live about 12 years longer.
Sure.
So you can choose happiness.
Got it.
It's not like a destination you get to. You can just choose it. I mean, granted, like, shit happens, right? Like stuff happens to us that like you can't control, and some people are really going through it, no doubt. But again, put the right people around you, have quality relationships, that lifts you up. But you personally choosing happiness and talking well to yourself. It's important to have people talking well around you, but talking well to yourself, positive self-talk. How many people say, like, oh, I'm so stupid, like, oh, I'm so fat, like, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm just going to fail. It's no, like, why should I even bother? Figures. Well, that just figured out that was going to happen. I suck at everything. Think about these things that you're saying. are you saying like, are you seeing yourself successful? Are you seeing yourself at the next level? Are you seeing yourself happy? Or are you seeing yourself broken down, failing, and like the glass is always half empty? And so it's important that you not only have the positive self-talk, but the positive people around you, and then the positive environment. So we need like the good food, the low EMF. We need like the good air and sunshine. All this stuff is free. We need to take deep breaths. There's psychosomatic connections with, it doesn't matter how your body sees it. Like when you take a deep breath, you relax. And when you're relaxed, you take deep breaths. And when you're stressed, you take shallow breaths. And when you're taking shallow breaths, you're stressed.
Yep.
So you can trick your body either way. It doesn't matter whether you're actually stressed or not stressed. If you take a deep breath, you de-stress. If you breathe shallow, you become stressed. So there's like hacks that you can do. Oh, this stuff is free. Breathe deep. Get the sunshine. Walk around. Relax. Breathe the air. Take your shoes off and ground and get the geomagnetic forces, that from the ground. And smile. That's another hack, right? Again, it's the same thing. Fake it until you make it. Like when you smile, when you laugh, your brain chemistry changes.
Yep. Because
when your brain chemistry changes, you smile and laugh.
Yep.
And again, like these connections, your body doesn't know which order it comes in.
Sure.
So you can hack yourself like that. Make yourself laugh. Make yourself smile. Get the right people around you. And all of this is free. So I can tell you, like, living 12 years longer from choosing happiness, living like well into your hundreds by like the putting the right people around you, and then living with purpose, living with your why, like, the Simon Sinek, like start with your why. That's so critical too. Like you see when people retire, how they die shortly after. All of us, it should be our goal that we work until the day we die.
Sure.
But we work with purpose, and we change how we define work, where work isn't a grind, but work is pleasure. Work is like when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?